Listen carefully, the universe is already moving in your favor. What you have long imagined, what you have dared to assume, is now rushing toward you. The unseen forces that shape reality are aligning with the image you have held within. Do not be deceived by appearances. Outward circumstances may suggest delay, but delay is only an illusion of time. In truth, creation is finished. Every desire you have ever imagined exists now, in this very moment, in a dimension unseen to the physical eye. The question is not whether it exists, but whether you will claim it. Imagination is the only doorway to the life you seek. What you dare to imagine and persist in assuming must harden into fact. The law is unfailing. If you live in the end, if you walk inwardly as though your desire were already fulfilled, the universe has no choice but to reflect it back to you. Stop asking when. Stop questioning how. These are the distractions of doubt. Your only duty is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, again and again and again, until it becomes your natural state. Today, right now, imagine yourself already in possession of your desire. See it, feel it, know it. Accept it as real, for it is real. The universe has already delivered. You need only step into the reality you have created. So I say to you, dare to believe in the unseen. Dare to walk by faith and not by sight. For the universe is about to deliver everything you've ever imagined, and more. The universe is already working in your favor, even when you cannot see the evidence. Every thought you nurture, every assumption you hold, begins to move unseen currents that shape your world. Life is not happening against you but through you, bending and arranging itself according to the images you persist in entertaining. The delays you perceive are not denials but alignments, preparing the perfect stage for your desire to unfold. Trust that every step, every encounter, every circumstance is quietly guiding you closer to the fulfillment of what you have imagined. For nothing you truly believe is ever lost. Creation is finished. Your desires already exist in the unseen realm, waiting for you to recognize them as real. Nothing you long for is yet to be made. It is already complete in another dimension of being. When you imagine, you are not creating something new, but tuning your awareness to what has always been present. This is why Neville Goddard spoke of living in the end, because the end already exists, and your task is simply to occupy it in consciousness. Just as a radio station is broadcasting, whether you listen to it or not, your desired reality is alive, fully formed, awaiting your attention. The moment you accept it as true inwardly, you align with it, and the bridge of incidents begins to unfold, guiding you step by step into its physical expression. What feels like the future is only the unfolding of what has been eternally present. The seed of every dream lies already complete in the mind of God, and imagination is the means by which you touch it. To believe that creation is finished is to release struggle, for all striving assumes lack, while assumption affirms possession. Your role is to see, feel, and know that it is already so. Outward delay is only illusion. For the very moment you dare to assume your desire fulfilled, creation is accomplished in the unseen. Time itself is not a barrier but a stage, a dimension of experience through which your assumption moves before becoming visible to the senses. What you call waiting is nothing more than the play of your own consciousness adjusting to the state you have entered. The world of appearances can deceive you into believing that nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, every force, every circumstance, every individual is being arranged in perfect order to mirror your inner conviction. Delay is the shadow cast by doubt, for when you know with certainty, time loses its power to frighten you. Understand that the seed does not sprout the moment it touches the soil, yet within it the full tree already exists. The unfolding of that tree is simply the revelation of what was always hidden. So it is with your desires. Outward delay is only the slow unveiling of what has been eternally true within imagination. If you judge by appearances, you will waver. But if you remain faithful to the unseen, the illusion of waiting dissolves. The law is exact. What you persist in assuming must externalize, no matter how long the senses protest otherwise. When you rest in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, every apparent delay becomes irrelevant, for you no longer seek evidence, you live in it inwardly. Time bends to the state you occupy, and the seeming gap between desire and manifestation collapses the moment you refuse to believe in postponement. Outward delay has no existence in truth. It is only the reflection of your willingness to wait rather than claim now. Imagination is the doorway to reality. For everything you experience in the outer world is but a reflection of what has first been conceived within. Before a building stands, the architect has seen it in the mind. Before a journey is taken, the traveler has pictured the destination. Every invention, every work of art, every achievement known to man was first born in imagination. For imagination is the womb of creation. To ignore this inner power is to remain at the mercy of circumstances, but to embrace it is to step into the role of conscious creator. When you imagine vividly and feel the reality of your desire, you are not indulging in fantasy but entering the true creative act. The outer world is slow, dense, and reflective, while imagination is immediate, fluid, and alive. What you dare to sustain within, regardless of appearances, must eventually harden into fact. Imagination is not daydreaming. It is the deliberate assumption of a new state of being. To see yourself as wealthy, loved, healthy, or free in the inner world is to claim these states in the only place they truly exist. The senses may argue otherwise, insisting that you lack, that you are bound, that nothing has changed, but imagination overrides the senses. It touches the eternal, the unseen dimension where all possibilities already exist. When you close your eyes and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are stepping through the doorway of imagination into a reality more powerful than anything the outer world can present. Persist long enough, and the outer must conform, for it has no choice but to echo the inner. This is why the masters have always urged man to walk by faith and not by sight. Faith is imagination discipline, vision focused upon the unseen until it becomes the seen. The world you live in tomorrow will be the direct result of the images you nurture today. To neglect imagination is to live as a prisoner of circumstances, but to master it is to discover that reality bends, molds, and reshapes itself according to the inner pictures you dare to hold with conviction. Imagination opens the door to infinite realities and reveals that nothing is impossible to the one who believes. Persist in assuming the wish fulfilled. For persistence is the golden key that unlocks the unseen into the seen. The first act of imagination may plant the seed, but it is the continual dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled that allows the seed to take root, grow, and finally express itself in your world. To assume once and then abandon it because appearances have not yet shifted is to uproot the seed before it has time to bear fruit. The law is certain, but it demands faithfulness. You must remain loyal to the unseen reality until it becomes the only reality you recognize. When you persist, you train your inner vision to dominate over the evidence of the senses. The outer world may whisper contradictions. It may parade lack and limitation before your eyes. But none of these appearances hold authority over imagination unless you grant them power. By persisting, you continually withdraw your attention from what you do not want and fix it firmly upon the fulfillment of your desire. This unwavering focus reconditions the subconscious mind, and the subconscious, being the creative medium, cannot resist expressing that which it has been impressed with repeatedly. Persistence is not struggle, nor is it effort in the physical sense. It is quiet determination, the inner decision to remain in the state of already having what you desire. It is walking inwardly as though it were impossible to fail. Each time doubt arises, you return gently to the feeling of fulfillment. Each time appearances tempt you, you remind yourself that appearances are shadows of past assumptions, while your present assumption is the true cause of all things. Over time, this inner discipline becomes natural, and the state of the wish fulfilled feels more real than the evidence of the senses. Consider that everything in your life today is the result of states you once persisted in. Whether knowingly or unknowingly, you have lived from assumptions, and they have hardened into fact. The beauty of this law is that the moment you choose to persist in a new assumption, you set in motion a new creation. The world cannot resist the steady pressure of an assumed state. It bends, rearranges, and conforms itself until your persistence is rewarded with manifestation. Persisting in the wish fulfilled means living as though you already are what you desire to be. It is speaking, thinking, feeling, and acting from that reality inwardly, regardless of outer contradictions. This persistence draws to you every condition, person, and circumstance required to make your assumption visible. Just as the sculptor chips away everything that does not resemble the finished form, persistence removes every doubt, fear, and opposing belief, leaving only the pure image of fulfillment. When you persist without wavering, the law must fulfill itself. For persistence is the assurance that the unseen is already yours live inwardly, as though your desire is already real. For consciousness is the only reality, and the state you occupy within is what shapes the world without. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and dwell in it as your inner reality, you are planting yourself firmly in the state of already having, already being, already experiencing what you long for. The outer world is only a mirror, and a mirror cannot reflect anything other than what stands before it. If you stand in lack inwardly, the mirror of life shows you lack. If you stand in fulfillment inwardly, life must eventually reflect fulfillment. The law does not fail, for it responds only to the imaginal act that has become natural to you. Living inwardly as though your desire is real is not pretending or forcing yourself to believe something false. It is recognizing that imagination is more powerful than appearances, that the unseen is the cause, and the seen is only effect. When you close your eyes and enter into the scene of your fulfilled desire, when you feel its reality with intensity and conviction, you step into the state where your wish is already accomplished. The senses may tell you otherwise, but senses are bound to past assumptions. You are not concerned with what was, but with what is now being accepted in imagination. This way of living requires discipline, for the world of appearances constantly tempts you to return to the old state. Doubt whispers, circumstances shout, and memory pulls you back toward the familiar. Yet, if you remain faithful to the inner world, refusing to surrender your assumption, the outer world has no choice but to conform. This is the meaning of walking by faith and not by sight. Faith is not blind belief, but vision. Vision of the unseen reality that you have chosen to inhabit. The more often you return to this inner dwelling place, the more natural it becomes, until eventually you no longer need to force yourself to imagine. You simply know, and knowing is the essence of faith. To live inwardly as though your desire is already real means that you carry yourself in thought, speech, and feeling as though the wish were fulfilled. If you desire abundance, you inwardly adopt the consciousness of wealth, gratitude, and sufficiency, even if your bank account appears empty. If you desire love, you inwardly assume the feeling of being cherished, valued, and secure, even if outwardly you are alone. If you desire health, you inwardly identify with vitality, strength, and wholeness, even if the body shows weakness. These inner states, once persisted in, recondition the subconscious mind, and the subconscious faithfully outpictures them into the world of form. Living inwardly in this way is not about ignoring reality, but about choosing which reality to occupy. Every possible state already exists, and you are free to inhabit any of them through imagination. The world you experience tomorrow depends entirely on the state you dwell in today. Therefore, you are always creating, whether knowingly or unknowingly, for the state you live from is the seed you are planting in the soil of consciousness. By assuming your desire as real inwardly, you are aligning with the finished creation, and what is finished within must eventually reveal itself without. When you live in this manner, you discover that time is not your enemy but your servant, unfolding the bridge of incidents that lead you to the physical manifestation. People, events, and opportunities appear in ways you could never predict, yet all serve to bring the invisible into visibility. The key is to persist in living inwardly as though it were already yours. For the moment you claim it in imagination, it is yours in truth, and the outer world will inevitably catch up to the inner acceptance. Do not ask how or when. For the moment you ask, you step out of faith and into doubt. The how belongs not to you but to the unseen intelligence that governs all creation. The when is not a question of time but of alignment, for manifestation appears the moment your inner world accepts it as already done. To ask how, is to assume separation between you and your desire. To ask, when, is to place your fulfillment in a distant future rather than in the present reality of imagination. Both questions deny the truth that creation is finished and that your only role is to occupy the state of the wish fulfilled. Life is not a puzzle you must solve, nor is manifestation a problem you must figure out. The bridge of incidents, those perfectly arranged sequences of events that carry you from where you appear to be to the fulfillment of your desire, is orchestrated by powers beyond your conscious control. Just as you do not question how your heart beats or how the seed becomes a tree, you must not burden yourself with the mechanics of creation. Your task is simple: to assume, to persist, to dwell inwardly in the end as though it were already accomplished. The moment you imagine and feel your desire fulfilled, it is done in consciousness. Consciousness is the only reality, and the outer world is merely its shadow. Shadows cannot appear until the object exists, and your imagined state is the object that casts the shadow of events, people, and circumstances. If you continually ask how or when, you are staring at the shadow, forgetting that the substance is already present in the unseen. The more you question, the more you affirm absence, for questions of method and timing arise only from unbelief. Faith knows that the unseen is more real than the seen. Faith rests in the assurance that what is assumed will harden into fact. Faith understands that every desire already exists in the eternal now, awaiting only your acceptance. When you cease to worry about how or when, you release resistance and allow the law of assumption to move freely. You align yourself with the truth that imagination creates reality, and reality must yield to the persistence of your assumption. Consider how nature demonstrates this law without question. The farmer does not plant the seed and then demand, "How will this grow? When exactly will the fruit appear?" He knows the process is certain, though unseen, and he trusts that in due season the harvest will come. In the same way, when you assume your desire fulfilled, the seed has been planted in the soil of consciousness. To question how or when is to dig up the seed each day to check for progress, and in doing so, you delay its growth. Trust the unseen process, for it never fails. Do not measure time by the clock of the senses. Time in this world is only the unfolding of states already accepted within. The length of manifestation depends only on the intensity and persistence of your assumption, not on days, weeks, or years. To say, when, is to live in tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes, for it is always today. Live now as though your desire is already real, and the so-called future must conform. When you ask how, you attempt to dictate the path, yet the path is always higher than your limited reasoning. The universe rearranges itself with infinite intelligence, moving people, circumstances, and opportunities in ways you could never predict. Often the manifestation arrives through channels you would not have chosen or imagined. Yet it arrives perfectly and effortlessly when you allow the law to operate without interference. To fixate on how is to restrict the flow, but to surrender is to open yourself to limitless possibility. The law of assumption requires only your faithfulness to the end. Your responsibility is to claim the state inwardly and to persist in it until it becomes natural. Let the details unfold in their own way, for they will unfold with precision. The how and when dissolve the moment you accept the wish fulfilled, for then there is no gap, no struggle, no distance, only the reality that already is. By refusing to ask how or when, you rest in the truth that all creation is finished, and what is finished within must inevitably reveal itself. Without faith, and assumption override doubt. For doubt is nothing more than the shadow cast by a mind that has forgotten its creative power. When you accept faith as your foundation and assumption as your tool, you stand in the position of mastery, for you no longer allow appearances to dictate your inner state. Doubt thrives on appearances. It whispers when circumstances contradict your desire, when time stretches longer than expected, when nothing seems to move in your favor. But appearances are echoes of past beliefs, and they hold no authority over the present act of assumption. Faith sees beyond what is into what truly is, and assumption anchors that vision until it becomes fact. Faith is not blind belief, but inner knowing. It is the calm certainty that what is unseen is more real than what is seen. To have faith is to trust imagination, to rest in the conviction that your desire already exists in the invisible realm of creation. Assumption is the conscious decision to embody that faith, to live inwardly as though your desire were already accomplished. When faith and assumption unite, they form an unshakable power, for they no longer seek confirmation from the outer world, but create the confirmation within. Doubt cannot survive in the presence of such unity, for doubt requires your attention to exist, and faith with assumption leaves no attention to spare. Every person has experienced moments of faith, even if only unconsciously. Think of times when you felt certain something would happen, and it did. That certainty was faith. Now consider that if you deliberately persist in assuming the wish fulfilled with faith, results must follow with mathematical precision. The law is exact: what you assume, you become, and what you persist in, you manifest. Doubt may arise, but faith dismisses it as powerless noise, and assumption continues to affirm the inner reality. It is persistence that decides which voice will dominate. Doubt feeds on questions: how will it happen? When will it come? What if it doesn't work? These questions are born from the belief in separation, from the idea that your desire exists somewhere far away and must be brought closer through effort. Faith, however, knows that creation is finished. It silences the need for how and when by affirming it is done. Assumption then becomes the practice of living from that done state. Each time doubt tries to invade, you return to assumption. Each time appearances scream lack, you return to assumption. Slowly, the mind is trained to default to fulfillment rather than absence. Faith and assumption override doubt because they shift the axis of power. Doubt places power in the external world, claiming that circumstances decide what is possible. Faith and assumption place power in the internal world, declaring that imagination dictates reality. When you choose assumption, you refuse to be ruled by appearances. When you hold faith, you recognize that appearances are delayed reflections, not ultimate truth. Together, they create a shield that renders doubt irrelevant, for doubt cannot penetrate a mind convinced of its own authority. Consider the nature of assumption. To assume is to accept without question. When you assume wealth, you no longer think of yourself as striving for it, but as already living in it. When you assume love, you no longer see yourself as waiting for it, but as already embraced by it. When you assume health, you no longer define yourself by illness, but by vitality. This mental shift transforms your inner conversations, your feelings, your reactions. It trains your subconscious to accept only fulfillment, and the subconscious, being the creative power, must bring to pass what it is fed with persistence. Faith is the fire that sustains assumption. Without faith, assumption becomes mechanical, a forced repetition without conviction. But when faith infuses assumption, every act of imagination feels alive, certain, inevitable. Faith does not need evidence, yet it produces evidence unfailingly. Assumption guided by faith is like planting a seed and knowing with absolute certainty that the harvest will come. You no longer question whether it will sprout, for your faith assures you of the process. All you do is persist, water it with attention, and rest in the assurance that the result is inevitable. In the battle between doubt and faith, the outcome depends entirely on what you feed with your attention. Doubt may arise naturally, but it cannot dominate unless you dwell on it. Faith may feel quiet at first, but when you return to it again and again, it becomes louder than any voice of fear. Assumption is the practice that strengthens faith, for every time you imagine the wish fulfilled, you reinforce the reality of your desire and weaken the grip of appearances. In time, faith becomes so natural that doubt cannot even find a place to enter. Faith and assumption override doubt because they align you with truth. The truth is that all creation is finished, that your desire already exists, and that you are free to claim it by dwelling in the state of its fulfillment. Doubt is the lie that says you are separate, that you must strive, that you must wait. Each time you choose faith and assumption, you expose the lie and replace it with truth. You live from the end, you feel the reality, you know it is already done. And when you live consistently from this position, doubt no longer has a voice, For faith and assumption have silenced it completely. Feel the reality of your desire now. For the present moment is the only point of power. Whatever you long for, whatever you imagine, already exists in the unseen dimension, waiting for you to accept it. To wait for outer evidence is to live in lack, but to feel it real now is to align with the eternal truth that creation is finished. Every desire, every dream, is a state of consciousness, and the instant you enter that state, you become it. The outer world, being only a mirror, must eventually reflect what you have assumed within. But the reflection comes only after you first embody the state in feeling. Feeling is the secret, for it is the bridge between imagination and manifestation. To think about your desire is not enough. You must feel it as though it were already accomplished. Thoughts may come and go, but feeling is the depth of acceptance. When you feel wealth, you are no longer striving for it, but living from it. When you feel love, you are no longer seeking it, but resting in its embrace. When you feel health, you are no longer battling illness, but embodying vitality. The subconscious responds not to words alone, but to the emotional conviction behind them. And it is this conviction that molds reality into the likeness of your inner state. To feel the reality of your desire now requires discipline, for the senses continually report the opposite. They may insist that you are poor, alone, or unwell, but senses are bound to past assumptions. They reveal only what has already been accepted in consciousness, not what you are free to accept now. The key is to withdraw attention from appearances and immerse yourself in the unseen. Close your eyes, step into imagination, and create the scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. Do not merely observe the scene as though it were happening to someone else. Enter it, inhabit it, and feel it as your present reality. The chair you sit in, the voice you hear, the hand you hold, make it vivid, make it alive, until it feels more real than the room around you. When you practice this consistently, the boundary between inner and outer reality dissolves. You discover that the outer world is nothing more than crystallized imagination, hardened into fact by the persistence of inner feeling. Each time you feel your desire now, you impress the subconscious with the new state. Each impression builds upon the last until the subconscious accepts it as natural. Once accepted, it must externalize, for the subconscious is faithful to outpicture whatever has been impressed upon it with feeling. To feel your desire now is also to live in the end. Living in the end means assuming that the wish is already accomplished and dwelling in the state that such fulfillment would naturally produce. Ask yourself, how would I feel if this were already mine? Then step into that feeling and remain there. If you desire abundance, you would feel relief, freedom, gratitude. If you desire love, you would feel warmth, joy, security. If you desire success, you would feel confidence, pride, satisfaction. These feelings are the essence of the state, and by assuming them now, you claim the end as present reality. This is not pretending, nor is it wishful thinking. It is the conscious use of imagination to claim what is already yours in the unseen. Pretending implies it is not real, but assumption affirms it is real now. Wishful thinking hopes for a future, but assumption rests in the present. The law of assumption states that what you persist in assuming must become fact, and feeling the reality of your desire now is the direct application of this law. Doubt may arise, and appearances may contradict, but neither has power unless you give them attention. Each time doubt appears, return to the feeling of fulfillment. Each time appearances suggest lack, remind yourself that appearances are delayed reflections, not ultimate truth. The truth is what you accept in imagination, and imagination creates reality. To feel the reality of your desire now is to declare that the truth is already yours regardless of appearances. Consider how natural this law is. Every experience you have ever had began as a feeling. You felt anticipation before an event unfolded. You felt certainty before results appeared. The feeling came first, and the manifestation followed. This pattern has never failed. To use it consciously is simply to choose the feeling you wish to live in and persist in it until it hardens into fact. The world has no choice but to mirror the state you have accepted. To feel the reality of your desire now also frees you from waiting. Waiting assumes absence, but feeling now assumes presence. The mind that waits is restless, anxious, uncertain. The mind that feels now is calm, confident, assured. Waiting places fulfillment in the future, but the future is always out of reach. Feeling now collapses the gap between desire and realization. For in consciousness there is only the eternal present. What you accept now is what you live, and what you live inwardly must eventually manifest outwardly. When you adopt this practice, you begin to see changes, subtle at first, then undeniable. You notice synchronicities, opportunities, shifts in people and circumstances. These are the bridge of incidents, the natural chain of events that unfold to bring the invisible into visibility. You do not need to control this bridge, nor do you need to know how it will appear. Your only task is to remain faithful to the inner state, to feel the reality of your desire now. The bridge will take care of itself, for the law is unfailing. Every great teacher of truth has emphasized this principle. Believe you have received, and you shall receive. Walk by faith, not by sight. The kingdom of heaven is within you. These are not mere words but precise instructions for creation. To believe you have received is to feel the reality of your desire now. To walk by faith is to ignore appearances and rest in inner conviction. To recognize the kingdom within is to understand that imagination is the source of all manifestation. Feeling the reality of your desire now is the doorway to transformation. It is the act that dissolves lack, silences doubt, and reveals that you are the operant power. Nothing stands between you and fulfillment, except your willingness to assume it as present. The world will bend, time will rearrange, people will play their parts, but none of this can happen until you feel it real now. The universe must deliver what you consistently imagine. For imagination is not idle fantasy, but the creative force that shapes reality itself. Every structure, invention, work of art, or achievement that exists in the physical world first lived in the unseen dimension of thought and imagination. The universe is obedient to the images impressed upon the subconscious mind, and the subconscious is molded by the feelings and assumptions you persistently hold. What you consistently imagine with feeling and conviction becomes the seed planted in the fertile soil of consciousness, and the universe cannot help but bring it forth into visible form. The law is exact: what you sow inwardly you reap outwardly. If you continually dwell in images of lack, fear, or failure, the universe mirrors those states through circumstances, people, and events that confirm them. But if you persist in imagining abundance, love, health, and fulfillment, the universe arranges itself to reflect those states with precision. There is no favoritism, no randomness, no exception. The outer world is but a mirror, faithfully echoing the inner world of imagination. This is why persistence is vital. A single moment of imagining may plant the seed, but only consistent repetition nourishes it until it takes root and grows into tangible reality. Many abandon their desires too quickly, swayed by appearances that contradict their inner vision. They imagine once or twice, then look to the world for instant evidence, and when they see none, they return to doubt, thereby planting seeds of contradiction. The universe responds not to fleeting wishes, but to steady assumption. It delivers what you consistently imagine, not what you temporarily hope. Consistency is the language of faith. To persist in imagination is to declare that you trust the unseen over the seen. Appearances may argue against your desire, but when you continue to imagine its fulfillment, you prove that you understand appearances are nothing more than delayed reflections of past beliefs. The universe does not create anew each time you imagine. Creation is already finished. All possible states exist now, and your consistent imagination selects which state you will experience. By persisting in one vision, you align yourself with that finished state, and the bridge of incidents unfolds to bring you to its realization. Imagine a farmer planting a seed in the soil. He does not plant today and expect the fruit tomorrow. He does not dig up the seed each day to check whether it is growing. He trusts the process, for he knows the law of growth is certain. He waters, he nurtures, and he waits with calm assurance. So too with imagination. Each time you consistently imagine, you are watering the seed of your desire. The universe, like the soil, responds unfailingly, though invisibly at first. The manifestation appears only after persistence has done its work. Feeling is the power that charges imagination. To imagine passively, without emotion, produces little change, but to imagine with feeling, deep, vivid, and real, impresses the subconscious mind. The subconscious cannot distinguish between imagination and reality. It accepts whatever is consistently fed to it. When you persistently imagine the wish fulfilled and feel it as though it were happening now, the subconscious records it as fact, and the universe must deliver the outer counterpart. This is why Neville Goddard taught that feeling is the secret. It is not the image alone, but the feeling of reality that creates. Doubt may arise and appearances may contradict, but consistency dissolves both. Each time you imagine, you overwrite the old state with the new. Each repetition strengthens the new assumption until it becomes dominant in consciousness. Once dominant, it expresses itself in the physical world, often through means you could never predict. The universe has infinite ways to deliver your desire, and it does so with precision, arranging people, circumstances, and events in ways that seem natural yet perfectly aligned with your imagination. The law does not ask effort in the outer world. You need not scheme, manipulate, or force results. Your work is inward, to persist in the imaginal act, to dwell consistently in the end, to assume the feeling of fulfillment until it becomes natural. The outer world then reflects your inner state with mathematical certainty. This is why so many who struggle in the outer world achieve little. They labor in action while neglecting the true cause, which is imagination. But those who master imagination discover that the universe itself bends to their inner vision, bringing results with an ease that seems miraculous to others. Consistency also protects you from distraction. The mind that wavers between assumptions creates delay, for it sends mixed signals to the subconscious. To imagine wealth one day and lack the next is to plant both wheat and weeds in the same field. The universe responds faithfully to both, and the harvest is confusion. But to consistently imagine one vision without deviation is to purify the field, ensuring a clear and abundant harvest. This is why persistence is not optional. It is the safeguard that ensures manifestation. Consider how this law operates in all areas of life. If you consistently imagine yourself healthy, dwelling daily in the feeling of vitality and strength, your subconscious accepts it, and the universe delivers circumstances, resources, and even bodily changes that reflect health. If you consistently imagine love, feeling cherished, valued, and secure, the universe arranges encounters and relationships that mirror your assumption. If you consistently imagine success, embodying the confidence and satisfaction of achievement, the universe aligns opportunities, ideas, and people to fulfill that vision. The outer must conform to the inner, for the universe has no choice but to deliver what is consistently imagined. Faithfulness to imagination transforms your entire life. You cease to be a victim of circumstances and discover yourself as the operant power. You realize that nothing happens to you that has not first been accepted within. The universe is not random or hostile. It is obedient, neutral, and precise. It does not argue or resist. It delivers exactly what you consistently imagine, whether consciously or unconsciously. This is why awareness is crucial, for even negative imagination produces results. To dwell consistently in fear, worry, or doubt is to instruct the universe to deliver their likeness. But to dwell consistently in love, joy, and fulfillment is to command the universe to reflect these states outwardly. When you grasp this truth, you take control of your destiny. You no longer ask if your desire will come, for you know the law cannot fail. You no longer wonder when it will appear, for you trust that persistence ensures its arrival. You no longer question how it will manifest, for you understand the universe arranges the how with infinite wisdom. Your only task is consistency, to imagine, to feel, to persist, until the imaginal act becomes your natural dwelling place. The universe must deliver what you consistently imagine, because imagination is creation itself. Every vision you sustain inwardly is a command to the unseen forces that govern reality. They take your command, organize the details, and reveal them in the outer world. Nothing is withheld, nothing is denied, nothing is impossible. The only limit is your own persistence, for the universe cannot resist a mind that consistently imagines with faith and feeling.